Yeah.
So we're going to need to know the tendons in the hand.
No, I'm not doing intrinsic muscles of the hand. We're doing the muscles of the forearm, and I'm trying to get to that point to explain these muscles by understanding the tendinous insertions. We're not doing intrinsic muscles of the hand, but you need to know the extensors of the fingers, right? Okay, and extensors of the wrist. So here, this is extensors, right? So you have a lot of tendons coming down there. I'm trying to bring out some points to you. So there's separate muscles that extend different fingers. So the Grim Reaper, right? When it does that, that's just the index finger, right? So there, now I'm not pointing at you. There's the extensor indicus for index finger. And then if you have a spot of T, you have the extensor digiti minimi, little tiny pinky one, right? And then you have one that just extends these fingers, generally speaking, like that. So that's what I was trying to say. Right in the middle of the back of the arm is this big one going down the middle, and you see the tendons going to the middle three fingers here, right? That's the extensor digitorum communis as a group, right? You get it? It helps you identify that muscle, doesn't it? Then we have muscles that go to the carpal bones. I'm going to come back to the other fingers. So you have, just like on the flexor side, you have flexor carpi radialis and a flexor carpi ulnaris. So where's the radial side on this? Always on the thumb side, right? So let's see, can you find a muscle coming down on the radial side? And here's where it gets a little crazy. So we looked at it from this view. We identified the brachioradialis. It's going to the radial side. It actually goes to the radial, the styloid process of the radius. That's the brachioradialis. And that bends the arm. By the way, brachioradialis is for hammer curls, straight up and down, or when a runner, sprinter trains for the pump, they'll do these kind of movements with the weights to practice, right? But the brachioradialis is weird because it's coming to this point. It could do this, and it could do this too. So let's not worry about that right now. But that's the brachioradialis. We identified it already, right? Remember when we identified that? When we were looking from the anterior view?
So where's the brachialis?
I'm trying to get to that. The brachialis, no, we did that. The brachialis was underneath the biceps. There it is, that's the brachialis.
Oh.
The biceps was on top, right?
Yeah.
So it's underneath here, and you may see it spill over a little bit there, right? That's the brachialis. The brachioradialis is that big one that came from the supracondylar ridge. Remember I talked about that when we looked at the lateral epicondyle and the medial epicondyle? And I said on the lateral epicondyle is all the extensors, but there's another muscle coming up from higher, the supracondylar ridge, and that's the brachioradialis. And it kind of becomes like an intermediate between the flexors of the wrist and the extensors of the wrist. So it's in between there, right? So now we go into the extensor side, and then, so if you identify brachioradialis, then you can identify the extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis.
Professor, can you identify the brachioradialis on this model?
Yeah, that would be this one right here.
This one?
Immediately, because you see how high it goes? Follow it all the way up. It's the highest one. No, follow, yeah, all the way up. That's it. See how high it is there?
Yeah.
That's brachioradialis. And it's separated from two muscles. See the next two?
These two?
That's the extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis.
Okay.
So here it is. Brachioradialis, and here's the longer one, extensor carpi radialis longus. Here's the shorter one, extensor carpi radialis brevis. Okay? And then go back in the middle. That's your extensor digitorum communis. And then we go on the ulnar side, that's extensor carpi ulnaris. So extensor carpi radialis longus, is just on the lateral side of the brachioradialis. You see that? And the next one, right next to it, it runs together. It's below it, shorter, and it actually doesn't really cross the elbow, and it doesn't do the same kind of action that this one would be. That's the extensor carpi radialis brevis right there. That's the muscle I tore trying to lift my motorcycle. And you would say, how does it tear it that way? Because it's an extensor, right? The orthopedist said, That's usually how you tear the muscle in the reverse muscle action. So it was trying to hold it, and it couldn't hold 615 pounds in a curled position. And I freaking tore the muscle almost completely off the bone. Bone head right here, okay? So, what's that? You have to let it rest. It's been months, and I have damage even into the bone where it inserts. So it's still, it's almost there. It's been since November. It's almost 100%. Okay, what's that?
What does the carpi refer to? in
Carpal
the-
bones?
Carpal bones?
It only goes to the carpal bones. So if it goes on the radial side, it's the carpal bones on the radial side of the hand.
And that's what radialis refers to.
Yep.
And then
And-
longus is 'cause it's longer.
Yep, exactly, exactly. So that's the extensor carpi radialis longus right there. That's, you can see it pretty clear on this, right? So I'll turn it so you guys can see it's the left arm. Brachioradialis, the higher one. Extensor carpi radialis longus. Extensor carpi radialis brevis. Extensor digitorum communis going to the middle digits. Now, it's a little dicey here, so I don't get too crazy. I'm not going to ask too much more, but you have an extensor indicus, which you can't see the muscle, you can only see the tendon here because it's underneath. So I won't ask extensor indicus. And extensor digiti minimi is over here. I won't ask that because it's hard to determine on this side as well. So we'll just keep it simple, all right? So you have extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis, brachioradialis, extensor communis. And then extensor carpi ulnaris would be right here. Where is it? You can't see it on that one too well. If I do extensor carpi radialis, I'll probably use this one. That's the extensor carpi ulnaris, I mean. Extensor carpi ulnaris right there.
You can't see that one here.
So if you want to see the digiti minimi, that's it right there. That's the extensor digiti minimi. See that? Going to the tiny digit. And this one only goes to the carpal, so that's extensor carpi. On what side is that?
On.
Ulnar side, right? So that's extensor carpi ulnaris. This is going all the way to the pinky. Extensor digiti minimi. This one goes to the 3 in the middle. Extensor what? Digitorum communis. This is a little too rough for everybody, I think, because you have abductor and extensors, pollicus longus and brevis, and an abductor. So this is, I'm not going to ask these three. I just keep it simple. I won't ask these three for you guys, all right?
Which one?
The abductor and the extensor pollicus. Anything that extends the thumb, I won't ask, all right?
Okay.
Or functions with the thumb. All right, so that's that stuff right there. I want you to work on the extensors of the wrist, extensors of the fingers. Don't worry about the thumb. All righty?